We're back here on King Talk Tuesday, the show with real views, real news, and real talk. I'm your host, Andy King, with our last segment with our special guest here, a good brother here, James C.B. Gray. Not only is he a great actor on the screen, but he's also a judicial delegate, a man of many cloths, many. He's like James Bond. He got a lot that he does to save the world and save people. So I'm thankful he's joining me. And before we went to break, we were in the midst of talking about the shutdown, what's going on, people not understanding the real truths. So I want you to talk a little bit, but I want our viewers to understand. You mentioned that people don't understand it was the Democrats that pressed the button. This what they call reoccurring. What is it? Reoccur. Let me get more. So in order to continue resolution, the continued resolution that Washington has to vote on, which they have voted for 13 times in the past since March 7th, to make sure that the government continues to go on. The Democrats have voted for it to make sure that the government, while they negotiate their budgets, they've passed this continuing resolution over years they could do it. So how ironic now, you mentioned that they've taken over $1 trillion and they want to put $1 trillion back into things. And this government says that under the leadership of Donald Trump, and I want people to be real clear, Donald Trump is not the one who's sitting at the table stopping the votes. It is the Democratic Party, because they need 60 votes to pass this continuing resolution. The way the law is written, the Republican senators only have 53 seats, and all 53 of those members are voting. So that means what? You need to have 7 votes from across the street, the Democratic. So the 3 that keep joining in Fetterman and the other 2 who keep joining brings you up to that 57, but you still need 3 more votes. So that means what? The Democrats have to say, let's bring this, keep the government running. Let's get it running. Pay our federal workers who are doing the job, whether they work in security, or they working in the SNAP department, or they working for our armed forces. But the people who do the jobs every day in the federal government, who need to pay their mortgages, to feed their children, but you're still getting paid as the elected official who made the decision not to pay them. That is selfish. It's irresponsible. And you're telling us it is not even about the people of America. We're so desperate in this fight to beat Donald Trump. We could care less what we do to the people of the United States of America. And it's not fair. And I hope everyone remembers, when it comes election time, who you should be voting for. Someone who cares about your interests, not their own personal fight. That has nothing to do with keeping your lights on, keeping your children fed, and keeping a roof over your house, and keeping essential services. So I want people to understand those numbers, because like you said, first thing you start talking about a shutdown, they throw Trump's name out like Trump did something, where at the end of the day, this is Congress and the Senate's problem. It's not the president who he can get in the room and vote. It doesn't work. The rules don't work that way. So I ask us all, before we start feeding into those sound bites and running down the street on fire on somebody else's narrative,
get the information.
Exactly.
Exactly. And, in 2019, when there was a government shutdown, we went out to the federal building downtown, across from the Supreme Court, and we stood with the union workers, and I did a interview at the press conference. Well, I spoke at the press conference, and it was that's back when I was with the National Action Network. And I said on camera, to Donald Trump, I said, when he quoted, he said that if there's ever a government shutdown, the president should fix it. And that's what he was saying to Obama. Obama was in office. He said, if there's a government shutdown, the president should fix it. And it's his fault. So then when in 19, when it came around to him and he was in office and there was a government shutdown, I said, yo, you said that if there's a government shutdown, it's the president's fault and he should fix it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's interesting, because no shade on the president, or no lack of shade on the president for those comments. But what tends to happen, just like people run for mayor, they run for government office. Once they get in there, they realize the rules are different than an opinion you can have before you sit in that seat. And you sit in that seat, you're like, okay, I can't do that. Oh, I can't do this. Oh, that's not my responsibility. Oh, I'm not to have the power via the Constitution, the state constitution, the rules of engagement. So we all have to be better, even those who are running for office, and hopefully in it for the right reasons, like you said.
Yes.
But talk to us a little about, we're talking about Washington right now. Everyone is, I don't even call him the orange hair man anymore because it changes on me. But his leadership around the globe, we've had wars. He's come in and he's used whatever political capital that he has to try to slow down wars, stop wars. Looking at the budget that the government has been spending money, which he believes in, with Doge and everybody else who he's brought in to try to uncover what's underneath this rock and figure out how to make sense of it. And people can't figure it out that he looked underneath the rock and found all this stuff. And as opposed to him saying, you found what? They're saying, how dare you look underneath that rock and get mad at what he found?
See, this is where the transparency comes in when it comes for the best of the people. Because they found a lot of money.
Yes.
They found so much money that Trump was trying to give every American citizen $5,000.
Right. Yeah.
And they Democrats were like, no, we don't want it. And I was like, yo, some people need this money, But like it's so hard not to choose sides. But with me, I'm so rooted in facts, statistical data, and because I do a lot of research. And when you start hitting people with the numbers and the facts, you start to really see who's really in it for solutions. You see what I'm saying? And you start to realize that there's not a lot of people who are solution based.
Right.
A lot of people are put in place and, bought and manipulated and blackmailed to do things that serve certain agendas and entities.
Right.
So at the end of the day, the people's best interest is really not always in mind. And the people have no idea because they don't understand politics. They don't understand the system, the structure, or the playing field. All they know is they have a problem. And once they find out who can help them with that problem, they try to get to that person by any means necessary, ultimately to find out that this person's not even interested in helping them. You know what I'm saying? So now they hate politicians. And no matter what you do, I'm not even a big politician, but people come to me all the time like, yo, man, I need you to help me. If I walk into a courthouse right now, I need a lawyer. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Even when I was doing Legal Night with Reverend Sharpton's National Action Network, we had about 10 attorneys on stage. And I'm over here coordinating. Right. But everybody thought I was like, man, we want you to represent us, man, not them. I said, no. These are the lawyers. I'm not an attorney. They like, what? Man, you dress better.
Not only have the dress code, which has to be respected because this generation, I've watched some of these so-called elected officials or individuals who say they're in the positions of helping folks, their appearance is deplorable. And it's not one that's stately. So how can I respect it? And more importantly, the things that come out of their mouths is even more someplace. I'm like, I don't even know who educated you or whose agenda are you really reading from that you thought that was okay to bring it to this family who's in need of this brother's in need of that. And if you use a good word, community servant.
Yes.
And I relate to that because when I was in city council, I used to tell, don't call me a politician. I said, you curse at me if you call me a politician. I'm a community servant and focus on how to find solutions to help us to our issues, not always navigate the politics to figure out what works for me, because politics only works for the individual who's navigating it or trying to manipulate it or manage. It doesn't work for the masses. And they give the perception that it works for the masses, where we got to say, I don't know. But I see our good friend, Councilmember Bob Holden, is joining us tonight. It's good to see you, Bob. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Getting colder, though. Getting colder.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad we got a few minutes. We're going to give you the rest of the show to talk about what in the world, because today is about politics and politics today. I know you're out there campaigning for a candidate. You're out there, fighting against what's the craziness that's been happening in Washington that's having an impact on you. Give us your thoughts on what's going on in politics today.
Well, I think you guys were talking a little bit about politics. I don't like to be called a politician either, because I'm not from that world. So, and by the way, you were right to the hilt. I always admired the way you dressed. You showed up with a tie, sometimes a bow tie, but that was okay. But I think what we're going through with especially we've never seen a mayoral election like this, where someone lost, like Governor Cuomo, the ex-Governor Cuomo, lost the primary, but he's back again as an independent. And the Republican candidate, they're asking to drop out, but he's a major party candidate. And we know him, Curtis Sliwa, from he started the Guardian Angels in 1979. And I remember taking the train back then, the F train into Manhattan, my job. And I welcomed when I saw the Guardian Angels, when the cars were all graffitied. It was not a good time in New York, a lot of crime, but the Guardian Angels were welcome. So that's why it's kind of curious. We have this newcomer, Zoran Mandani, who nobody really knows, but he's just trying to sell us a bill of goods, I think. And I don't believe him. So, and he hasn't really done anything. So Governor Cuomo is an opponent, obviously, and so is Curtis Sliwa. Governor Cuomo is targeting Mamdani, obviously, and saying that he doesn't really have a resume. And I remember at the debate last week at LaGuardia Community College, Curtis Sliwa said, "Mr. Mamdani, your resume would fit on a cocktail napkin," which was accurate. And if you want free everything, and by the way, I lived not, you weren't around when the Soviet Union was around. Were you, Andy, so much?
I remember when it existed and it fell apart. Yes.
Yeah, you remember that. And you remember Cuba, right? Everybody remembers Cuba.
Oh, yes. Kennedy days. Yeah.
So these are socialist countries, and their system didn't work. I mean, if you looked at their grocery stores, there was a line around the block, and there wasn't many things on the shelf. But Mamdani wants to create government-run grocery stores. Does anybody think that will work?
Not in a capitalist society. Doesn't work.
And that's why we're for free enterprise. That means if you work hard, you apply yourself, you work night and day, you'll succeed in life.
Mm-hmm.
You'll succeed in America. You'll succeed in New York City. So that's what we live by. But Mamdani believes everything should be free. Everything, buses should be free. There should be groceries, stores that are giving out food, and housing. You want to freeze rents. Well, there's something called a landlord that has to maintain the property, and you can't freeze the rent automatically. The mayor can't do it. There's a rent guidelines board that you have to go through. Yes, the mayor appoints the members, but there has to be a give and take with the landlords. If you give everybody free rent, who's going to invest in the property? And the rent's frozen. Right. It doesn't work. And Governor Cuomo knows that. Curtis Sliwa knows that. Mamdani doesn't know it, because 33-year-old guy with no real track record in government to speak of, and he was absent 80% of the time in the assembly. That's not the kind of mayor we want. So that's why I'm helping Curtis Sliwa. I just don't believe Andrew Cuomo is going to change, because he was disgraced, and he caused all this. He did raise the age. Remember that?
Yes, I do.
You were the criminal justice. Were you chair at the time, right?
Yes, I was. Yeah, we had a few press conferences we've had out there too.
I served with you, and we went to Horizons and some of the juvenile lockups, and we saw the problems there. A lot of violence at that time in the jails, and we knew it couldn't work the way the model was working. But most of the crime you're seeing, most of the shootings. I was just on another podcast and a Zoom with former chief of NYPD, Chief of Patrol John Schell, and we were talking about raise the age, the bail reform, discovery. Discovery is very harmful, where you have to give your, let's say, the lawyer for the defense, all the information within a certain period of time, 45 days. And many times the evidence comes in, and it comes in last minute, and you couldn't get it in the 45 days. Right. they
That's
throw
so
the
true.
case out. I mean, Alvin Bragg's caseload now, I think it's about 40% of his cases are being dismissed.
Wow.
Because of, and mostly because discovery and all the DAs are telling me or telling us that they can't meet that. And how do you tell a victim who's been attacked that we're going to let you, the person that we were charging with, we're going to let him go because we couldn't meet the discovery deadlines.
Right. Well, you know what? That's why he has it. That's why he has an opponent challenging him in his race, and we'll see how that plays itself out. We keep in New York City safe.
He has two opponents.
Wow.
Which could be a problem, couldn't it?
Right. I'm gonna give you some final words because we've just went over time. So we need to wrap up. But when it comes to politics today, what do you want to tell people, whether it's from what's happening in Washington or just right here in the city of New York? What will be your final words to them in the next 30 seconds?
We have to be smart at the polls coming up on November 4th. This early voting now. Please vote, but vote for public safety. Vote for quality of life, and do some research on the candidate. Don't just blindly vote party line down the road, because I don't do that. I do some research on the candidate, and I'll talk to the candidate. So if the candidate is in your district, ask questions, but be a smart voter, and let's stop electing people that are unqualified. And Andy knows there's a lot of unqualified council members in the New York Council.
Yo, so God be with us. Well, I thank you, Councilmember Holden. This was a delight. After the election is over, hopefully we can get together and chat it up again. And peace and blessings to you and the district, and much success on your campaigns in the future.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again, Brother Gray. I want to thank you. You got any final 5 seconds you want to share with the folks?
Well, no, I just want to thank you for having me. Without this brother, man, we'd be lost, because he definitely is connected to the youth. The youth are one of our most valuable resource right now, and we got to keep them in arm's reach with love, all across the board, understanding, transparency. We got to take time with them to get to understand them so we can work with them. When you put up that wall, that's a generational curse and a generational gap, and we cannot afford that right now. We got to connect with them, and this brother has proven that it can work on many different levels. That's why I'm so happy to be working with him, because we're going to make so many big things happen.
Oh, I'm ready. Get excited. Well, thank you again, my good brother. Councilman Holden, thank you again. But as we always do on King Talk, we end every show with a scripture. And tonight's scripture reads from Romans 13:1-2. Let every person be subject to the government authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. If no one told you today,